The rain was still in my hair when I pushed the front door open. The house smelled wrong thick, chemical, sharp enough to sting my nose. I dropped my bag and followed the sound of rollers scraping the wall. Two men in paint-stained overalls stood in my bedroom, coating the walls in a shade of flat white. My curtains lay in a heap on the floor, my dresser shoved to the center of the room. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" One of them froze mid-roll. The other mumbled something about the sister and stepped back. "The sister," I repeated. Behind me came a familiar voice, calm and pleased. "You're home early." I turned. Sylvie leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, hair perfectly dry. "Why are there strangers in my bedroom?" She smiled. "Relax. They're just fixing it up a bit before we move in." "Before who moves in?" "Me. Daniel. The kids. You said it yourself. The house is too much for one person." "I never said that." My throat tightened. "This is my house." "Sylvie," her smile didn't fade. "Our family's house? Technically. You wouldn't even have the down payment without Mom's help." That was a gift, not a claim. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Don't make this difficult. Clara, the lease on our place is ending next week. You have 2 bedrooms, and we need space. It's perfect." I looked back at the men. "Stop painting," I said, louder than I meant to. They exchanged a glance, waiting for her cue. Sylvie's tone sharpened. "You're overreacting. You've always been territorial. Let them finish." I moved between her and the workers. "Out, all of you." The younger man hesitated, then set his roller down. The older one followed. Sylvie's smile cracked. "You're being ridiculous," she hissed. "You think you can just push everyone away." I held the doorknob, knuckles white. "Get them out. Sylvie, now." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she laughed softly. That cruel little sound I remembered from childhood. "Fine," she said, "but don't pretend this house will stay yours forever." When the door shut behind them, the paint still gleamed wet on my walls. It didn't look like home anymore. The next morning, Sylvie was already on my porch when I opened the door. She held 2 coffee cups like peace offerings. "Truce," she said, stepping past me before I answered. I figured we should talk before things get awkward. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "You had strangers in my house. They were contractors. Clara, paid professionals." She set the cups on the counter. "We just wanted to make the place nicer before moving in." I froze. "You keep saying we... What does that mean?" She looked at me as if I were slow. "Daniel. The kids. Me. This house has 2 bedrooms, and your mortgage is brutal. We're saving you." "Really?" "I don't need saving." She smiled in that gentle, poisonous way. "You think living alone forever makes you independent? It makes you stubborn." I crossed my arms. "You don't live here." "Sylvie." She walked to the hallway, glancing around like she already owned it. "You'll adjust. We'll pay part of the bills. It'll be fun family again, like old times." "Old times," I stepped closer. "You mean when you took what you wanted and called it love?" Her expression hardened. "Don't start with your martyr act. Mom wanted us to look out for each other." "I'm doing that." I pointed at the door. "Get out. Daniel's bringing a few boxes tonight," she said quietly. "It's happening whether you like it or not." I reached for my phone, and she laughed. "You wouldn't call the police on your own sister." She brushed past me, perfume sharp in the air, leaving one of the coffee cups on the counter. Her lipstick marked the rim like a signature. By evening, I'd thrown it away. But the scent stayed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the floor sounded like someone walking through my house. I lay there staring at the ceiling, remembering every shift, every hour that had brought me here. I'd been 26 when I signed the deed. The banker shook my hand like it was a miracle. Maybe it was. I'd spent 6 years saving for it, working double shifts at the diner, counting crumpled bills under the yellow light of my kitchen table. Rosa, the head waitress, used to tease me. Clara, you're going to die with that envelope still in your hand. I'm going to die with my own house key. I'd told her. She'd laughed then, but it wasn't a joke. I'd patched shoes instead of buying new ones, walked home in the rain to save on bus fare, skipped every weekend out. Every cent went into that envelope hidden behind an old cookbook. When I finally had enough, I found the little bungalow on the north side of Salem, 2 bedrooms, peeling paint, a sagging porch. It didn't matter. It was mine. I could still hear the realtor that day. It needs love, but it's solid. I have plenty of that. I'd said and meant it. That first week, I painted every wall myself. I didn't hire anyone, not even Rosa's cousin who offered to help. I wanted to feel the brush hit the surface, wanted the sweat and the ache and the proof. Every stroke whispered, "You did this." And now Sylvie wanted to paint over it, as if erasing me. The next morning, she called. "You're being childish," she said. "We can make this work if you stop fighting me." "I'm not fighting you," I said. "I'm defending what's mine. It's just a house." "It's not." She sighed. "Daniel's already giving up our apartment. Do you really want us on the street?" "You had a choice before you decided this was yours. Mom would be ashamed of you." I almost laughed. Mom never lived long enough to see me own anything. There was a pause long enough for both of us to remember what that meant. Then her voice turned sharp again. "You'll change your mind. You always do." The line went dead. I sat with the phone pressed to my ear, the silence louder than any threat. Sylvie started showing up without warning. Sometimes she knocked. Sometimes the sound of her car was the only notice I got. "Relax," she'd say, stepping in before I answered. "You make this house feel like a museum. I like it clean." I told her. "Clean, sure, but lifeless," she said, setting down grocery bags I hadn't asked for. "You need help making it feel like a home." Her version of help meant control. She moved my couch to catch the light better, swapped my curtains, and left paint swatches on the table like challenges. When I came home one evening, she was already in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, humming. "You should keep your spare key somewhere safer," she said lightly. "I found it under the flower pot." My pulse jumped. "You went looking for it. I was curious," she said. "You never tell me anything anymore." "I don't need to," I said. "It's my house." Her tone softened, falsely sweet. "You sound lonely when you say that. You think independence means isolation, but you're wrong. Get out, Sylvie." She smiled, slow and deliberate. "Daniel thinks you're overwhelmed. He says maybe we should manage the bills, make things easier for you." "I'm not your project." Her eyes glinted. "You will be if you keep acting like this." We stared at each other across the kitchen. She reached out, straightened a picture frame on the wall, and whispered, "You've never known how to keep what's yours." When she left, the picture hung perfectly centered, but it didn't look right anymore. That night, I hid the spare key in a new place and locked every window twice. The next morning, the frame was crooked again. 3 days passed before I saw her car again. I'd almost convinced myself she'd given up, until I walked into the living room and noticed the couch had moved angled differently, closer to the window. When I checked the kitchen, the mugs I'd left drying were stacked neatly in the cabinet. Someone had been here. I called Sylvie. "Did you come into my house?" Her tone was airy. "You're imagining things again." "Don't lie to me." She sighed. "Clara, you really should relax. You're acting paranoid." I gripped the phone tighter. "You have a copy of my key." She didn't answer. The silence stretched until I heard her smile through the line. "You always hide your spare in the same place. Under the flower pot. Right. Not very clever." My stomach dropped. I moved it. "Well," she said softly, "then maybe I guessed right before you did." I hung up. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the phone. For the rest of the day, I checked every lock, every latch, until the sun went down and the house felt smaller than ever. That night, I called Rosa from the diner. "You still have that notebook you use for customers who don't pay?" "Yeah," she said. "Why I need to start writing things down." She didn't ask questions, just said, "Do it." So I did. Every morning before work, I took photos of each room. Every night, I compared them: furniture, drawers, shelves. Once, I caught the smallest detail: my dresser drawer slightly open, though I'd left it closed. When Sylvie dropped by again, I met her at the door. "You've been inside," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "It's not breaking in if I have a key. Not one you made without asking." She smiled faintly. "You're getting dramatic." "Clara, you should let me help. You're drowning in this place." "I'm not drowning." She leaned forward, her perfume sharp and familiar. "Then why are you shaking?" I slammed the door before she could step inside. Her voice slipped through the crack, calm and certain. "You can change the locks if you want. I'll still find a way in." It happened on a Sunday evening. I was carrying groceries up the porch steps when a car door slammed behind me. Sylvie stood at the curb with Daniel and their 2 kids, each holding a suitcase. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." Daniel climbed the steps first. "Our lease ended. The landlord locked us out. We're moving in tonight." I blocked the door with my arm. "You're not." Sylvie's voice turned brittle. "You can't leave us outside. Clara, the kids are exhausted." One of them yawned, clutching a stuffed bear. For a second, pity tangled with anger. "You had weeks to find a place," I said. "This isn't it." Daniel smirked. "You think you can stop us? We'll see what the law says when family's involved." "I don't care what you think the law says." I reached for my phone. "You step 1 foot in here, I call the police." Sylvie's eyes flashed. "You wouldn't embarrass us like that in front of the neighbors." "Try me." Across the street. Curtains shifted. Mrs. Ramirez was watching. Sylvie noticed too and raised her voice. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us." Daniel dropped one suitcase on the porch. "We'll be inside by tonight, one way or another." I shoved it back toward him. "Take it and go." He stared at me, jaw tight, then turned to his wife. "Let's leave. She'll regret this." Sylvie lingered a moment longer, her smile thin as glass. "You can lock the door, Clara, but you can't lock out blood." When they finally drove away, my hands were still trembling on the doorknob. 3 days after the porch fight, a thick envelope showed up wedged in my mailbox. No return address. Inside were printed screenshots, text conversations I'd never had. My number at the top of every message. "Come live with me. Sylvie, the house is too big for one person. Bring the kids. We'll figure it out together." I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Then my phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen. "You got my letter." Sylvie's voice was smooth, almost cheerful. "What the hell is this proof?" she said. "In case you keep pretending you never invited us." "I never wrote any of that." "Clara," she said, lowering her tone like she was soothing a child. "You've been working too much. Maybe you forgot. You get confused when you're stressed." My grip tightened. "Don't twist this." She laughed softly. "I'm just helping you remember. People will believe the messages before they believe your temper." That night at the diner, Rosa noticed my hands shaking as I poured coffee. "You need to tell someone," she whispered. "She forged everything," I said. "Texts, maybe emails too. Then you need proof of your own." By the next morning, the whispers had started. The neighbor waved awkwardly, avoiding my eyes. At the hardware store, the clerk who always joked with me just nodded, stiff and polite. Sylvie was already spreading it how I'd begged her to move in, how I'd changed my mind, how I was losing it. When I confronted her again, she didn't even flinch. She was standing in my driveway, talking to Mrs. Ramirez over the fence. "I told you to stop coming here," I said. Sylvie turned, innocent smile in place. "Just explaining things. People worry when you isolate yourself. You made fake messages." "They don't look fake," she said. "And the receipts help." "What receipts?" She held up a folder. "Furniture, paint, groceries, all bought with your card, so it's a shared expense." "Right, My stomach turned cold. You stole from me. Don't be dramatic. You'd spend it on the house anyway. I took a step forward, but her husband's car pulled into the street. Engine idling like a warning. Sylvie smiled wider. See, we're already a family in everyone's eyes. You'll only make yourself look unstable if you keep fighting. Then she leaned close, her voice low enough only I could hear. Truth's just paperwork, Clara, and I've got plenty of it. Rosa was the one who made me go. She scribbled a name and number on a napkin and pushed it into my hand. Call him before she ruins you. That's how I met Mr. Whitaker Greyhair, calm voice, eyes that didn't flinch. I handed him the forged texts and receipts, my fingers still trembling. He read in silence for a long minute. These aren't real, he said finally. Look here. The metadata shows they were generated through an editing app. She's building a narrative, but it won't hold up. She's already spreading it. People believe her. Then stop letting her control the story. He said, start documenting. Photos, times, names. Keep copies of everything. I nodded. She has a key. He paused. Change your locks today. Every door, every entry. Don't wait. By dusk. Rosa's brother-in-law showed up with a toolbox in quiet efficiency. He didn't ask questions, just worked front door, back gate, even the side latch I never used. 3 sets, he said, pressing the new brass keys into my palm. 1 for you, 1 backup, 1 for someone you trust. Rosa stood beside me, arms crossed. You trust me. Right? I managed a smile. You're the only one I do. When he left, I walked the perimeter, testing every lock twice. For the first time in weeks, the air felt still. Rosa lingered by the doorway. She'll try something else, she said quietly. I know. She handed me a small keychain, a thin brass plate engraved with one word, boundaries. Keep that one close, she said. I clipped my new key onto it and watched the light catch on the metal. For a moment, it felt like armor. It happened the next morning. A hard pounding at the door shook the frame. I froze halfway through my coffee, then opened it to find 2 officers on the porch. Sylvie stood behind them, arms folded, a folder clutched to her chest. Ms. Hensley, the older officer, asked, We've received a complaint. Your sister claims you're holding her belongings and preventing access to shared property. Sylvie stepped forward before I could answer. I tried reasoning with her, she said sweetly. She's been unstable lately. Look, I brought proof. She handed the folder over. Inside were the same forged messages and receipts Mr. Whitaker had already examined. The younger officer glanced at me. Ma'am, do you want to explain this? I took a slow breath. Those messages are fake. My lawyer can verify that. This house is mine. Sylvie's smile didn't waver. She doesn't even remember sending them. You'll see. She's been under stress. I turned to the older officer. My deed's in the study. I'll get it. Go ahead, he said, following me inside. My hands shook as I pulled the folder from the drawer. The deed lists me as the sole owner, I said, laying it flat. And I've documented every time she entered without permission. The younger officer flipped through my notebook dates, photos, names. His expression tightened. Ms. Hensley. The older one said to Sylvie, We'll need to confirm this with your lawyer. Until then, please don't enter the premises. Sylvie's tone sharpened. You're taking her side. I'm following the law. She laughed suddenly, brittle and high. You think you've won? Clara, you can't just erase family. Headlights swept across the yard, cutting through her words. Mr. Whitaker stepped out of his car, briefcase in hand. He nodded to the officers. Calm as ever. I believe those documents came from my client's sister, he said. If you'd like, I can show you why they're fabricated. The officers exchanged a look. Go ahead. He pointed at the corner of one printout. Timestamp inconsistencies. No carrier metadata. These were generated through an editing application. If this goes further, it becomes a forgery case. Sylvie's face drained of color. You can't prove that. I already have, Whitaker said evenly. You'll want to leave before I file charges. The silence stretched. Daniel appeared on the curb, engine still running. "Sylvie," he called quietly, "get in the car." She didn't move until the officers turned to her again. "Ma'am," the younger one said, "you'll need to remove your belongings now under supervision for the next hour." I watched as she carried boxes out of my house one by one. The furniture she'd bought with my stolen money went last, her expression flat, her hands trembling. When the patrol car finally pulled away, the air felt hollow. Whitaker closed his briefcase and looked at me. "Change nothing for 72 hours, he said. "Let quiet be your witness." I nodded. My throat ached, but I managed a word that felt heavier than any I'd spoken in weeks. Finally. The house stayed silent for 2 days. I woke at dawn, half expecting to hear knocking again, but only the wind moved through the gutters. Rosa came over that afternoon with 2 paper bags and dirt on her jeans. "You're not letting her steal your piece too," she said, setting the bags down. "Come outside." We planted daisies and lavender along the walkway. She pressed the soil with her palms, firm and certain. "You keep building, Clara. That's how you win." "I'm just tired," I said. "Then rest. But don't give her another inch." When we finished, the scent of lavender mixed with the faint trace of paint that never fully left the walls. Rosa wiped her hands and nodded toward the door. "Where's that keychain I gave you? I pulled it from my pocket. The brass plate engraved with one word. Boundaries." "Hang it where you'll see it," she said. "Every day. Inside." I found a nail above the kitchen light and looped the keychain there. The brass caught the evening sun, bright and steady. Rosa leaned against the counter. "You changed. You know. Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just stopped apologizing for owning something." She smiled, soft and proud. "Good. Keep it that way." When she left, the house stayed quiet. I locked the door, pressed my hand to the new brass key, and breathed until the silence felt like mine again.